Hello everyone, creator of the Neo Pro here. For this video, I'll be talking about the key details that weren't mentioned on the build video, as well as some pointers on how to actually build the drone. First, let's look at some of the changes I made from the very first prototype frame, which is what I built. Here, this is the very first prototype drawing. So you can see, this is what we currently have on our actual drone. I changed it a little. For example, here, this part, the top plate or the upper frame, this cross right here, this brace, I over-engineered this part. This is way too strong. So just having this square like that, that's already strong enough. So I had to remove this part, which is not holding up anything. That's really not needed. And this part right here has to be removed. And as well as this has to be carved out because I underestimated how much the ribbon cables actually stick out. So that had to be carved out. And over here, I only did some carving out here because this was way too small for the gimbal mount to fit into. And over here as well, this has to be changed too. The camera guard mount, those had to be changed, as well as the length, the front of it, these mounting holes, and as well as all these, the whole front part from this mounting holes had to be moved forward 3 millimeters. Here, as you can see, this part right here is much further. This mounting hole is much further from this hole than here. You can see that had to be changed. There were some overlapping issues with the gimbal mount and the motherboard. I'll show you an image right here of what I did to get around that issue. So that was just a temporary fix. In this newer version, it won't be a problem anymore. There's now enough space for the gimbal assembly and the motherboard. And as you can see, we also changed the camera guard mount. As first, it was too close to the edge, so cutting this is very hard. It had to be changed. It had to be moved slightly inwards into the frame so that there's more material up here to support the camera guard. You'll see here in the picture of the actual frame that I built, I couldn't actually make a hole. I just dug a trench, as you can see here. So that's why I wasn't mounting the camera guard. This is the camera guard, by the way. Actually, this camera guard also had to be changed since this was too beefy. It was too heavy. Let's see here. Here are the changes for the camera guard. So here's the camera guard, the updated version. This one had these little fins that's sticking out from the bottom, because I initially intended this to be the landing feet for the drone so that a downward visual positioning sensor could be lifted up so it wouldn't hit the ground. So that had to be changed since I decided to mount the antennas over the front arms, and they essentially act as landing feet for the drone so that the downward visual positioning sensor is off the ground. Here, as you can see, I also carved out the area for the visual positioning sensor so that it can actually sit properly into the frame, because right now, as you can see here, it's actually sticking out a bit too far, and it's a bit crooked. Right now, it's only tacked on by some mounting tape. In the future, we'll have to use these screw holes to mount it. For now, I'm only using some mounting tape to mount it up there. So those were the changes made on the bottom frame. Here's the top frame. These are the changes that were made. This is the original. Here, as you can see, this was carved out a bit more. This was extended out to account for the changes up here. Here, as you can see, those are carved out. And then the camera guard mount also had to be adjusted, just like the bottom plate. And because of that, now the camera mount hole is actually way too close to this screw hole right here. It's way too close, so the material left here was too thin, and that's just not realistic, so I had to carve that out. Just had to carve that out. The screws can still go here without any problems, but yeah, this is also way too thin. Not sure if machining this will be viable, but we'll have to see. And those are the changes made to the top plate, and some more changes on the bottom plate here. The motor guards. This is actually a motor guard right here. It prevents the motor from getting smashed if a crash happens. So this protects the motor, this part right here. So I made this less beefy. So as you can see here, from the original one, it's way too thick. That's way too heavy. Way too thick, way too heavy. So I decided to change that. This is way thinner. It's still pretty strong, but it's now lighter, way slimmer. As well as this part. These only hold the heatsink, the tin foil or the aluminum can heatsink. This holds it in, so this doesn't really need to be strong. This part is the structural part. This outside part right here, it only holds the motherboard, so it's pretty strong for that. Also carved out this part. Could have shaved out a bit more weight from there. So yeah, that's what I did. Here's the original. You can see they're a bit thicker. Yeah, a lot thicker right here. And this is a lot thicker, this part. So yeah, gotta shave up some more weight from there because we added weight here. Just here. Didn't really add that much weight, but we did add a bit more weight here. And we took some more. So this should be a net negative for the weight. So yeah, those are the changes. And here is the 3D modeled part. Here are the parts. They all fit together. I decided to actually make the part for this here. They're a bit misaligned, as you can see from here. They're misaligned. That was intentional, so that when you actually put them together, this part will essentially interlock. It'll have some tension when you actually assemble this part, so that they don't fall off. They won't fall off, but I want to make sure that they won't fall off. So as you can see there. Also here, I forgot to mention this part. This hole right here is actually for the hex nut that holds the screw in place, as you can see here from this image. In the original camera guard, that wasn't there because the camera guard doesn't actually go in far enough to interfere with that nut. But in this version, since that mounting hole has been moved inwards into the frame, it had to be changed. Alright, so those were the changes. You can see here. This is carved in. And from the bottom, here I'm actually using the stock screws from the Neo motor. Those motors are pretty short, so that's why we need this 1mm or 0.8, I think. Was this a 0.8? I forgot. So it's a countersink hole for those screws. So those are needed if you want to use the stock Neo motor screws. So I decided to use those just because those are actually much lighter than the aftermarket screws that you find. Those things have larger heads and they're longer too. So they're much heavier than the stock ones. So those are some weight saving efforts. And yep, this is what it looks like. Those are the changes that were made. And for here, this part, the part from the original Neo, this is the bottom part of the original Neo. We only really use this just so we can mount the battery. And as you can see here, it's been carved out so you can shave some more weight here. And over here, for the battery connector, here I actually just use another Neo battery connector. The old one is still in there. You can actually just reuse that one if you want, but For me, this was easier because it's actually pretty hard to desolder that connector in there. You're gonna have to use some jumper wires. You'll have to do some modifications on some of the nylon standoffs over here. I'll show you here. So you just have to shave it like a pencil because you won't be able to screw it in because of the size of it. It'll hit this part of the motherboard. Yeah, you have to shave that down a bit. Those are the only things that you have to do. Alright, so for the files, I'll have a paid version. The paid version will include the 2D vector drawings as well as the 3D files. So those will be included for the paid version. And for the free version will only include a printable drawing that is properly sized. So you can print that the size, you can stick it on a carbon fiber sheet or plate, and you can cut it by hand, or if you have a machine, then that'll be better. So yeah, you can print out that stencil. And yeah, the standoffs, I'll put a link in the description below. I'll also include the propellers here. So yeah, those are all the things that you'll need to do in order to build your own Neo Pro. In the future, I'll actually also make a version of this with a much larger motor mounts so you can fit different size motor. Here you can actually see that I have another version here. This one was actually the very first version I created. So this one was made with replaceable arms. It has more parts, which means it's heavier than this version. It's a lot heavier than that version. I haven't actually made this yet. This will be harder to make if you wanna hand cut it, since it requires a lot more parts to be cut out. But yeah, this was designed for more like bashing, or you know, if you're like a hardcore flyer or if you crash a lot, this will be good for that, since you don't have to replace the entire bottom plate out every time you crash. But those arms are actually pretty darn strong. They won't break that easily. You guys let me know if you also want this version of it. I'll release it if you also want this version. So yeah, just good luck with the build. Thanks for watching the video, and that's all.